Usually when we think about traveling from point A to point B these days, there is this immense expectation of efficiency.
Oh,
It's almost like we want teleportation. You go to the airport, you stuff yourself into a pressurized metal tube, you endure the middle seat for a few hours, and then you are deposited in a completely different climate. It's entirely binary.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that creates this really strange detachment. You're either here or you're there.
Right.
The journey itself is just treated like this annoying hurdle to get over. It becomes, a blank space in your memory.
Yeah, completely forgotten.
Exactly. You look out an airplane window or even out of a high-speed bullet train, and the landscape just blurs into a static map. You aren't interacting with the Earth at all. You are just skimming over it.
But then you step away from those major transit hubs, you jump on a slow regional coastal train, and suddenly that teleportation device is broken.
Right, and deliberately broken.
Yes, deliberately broken. We are looking at a mode of travel today that is honestly a revelation. It feels like a secret hack to actually seeing the world at a human scale.
I mean, it is the absolute definition of intentional travel. When you match your speed to the rhythm of a local train, one that literally hugs the water's edge, you are forced to observe the slow, profound geological transitions of the world.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to explore 5 of Europe's absolute best, most magical coastal train lines.
And we've synthesized these from a really incredible curated travel guide.
We have. But we aren't just, looking at timetables and stations here.
No, not at all.
We are unpacking the dramatic scenery, the surprising history, and the sheer stubborn engineering of these sea-hugging routes. We're going to see how the speed of our travel completely dictates our relationship with the landscape.
Yeah, and these 5 specific routes take us across Germany, Ireland, Scotland, Spain, and Italy.
A really great mix.
Right. And they reveal something profound about how geography and human determination collide. Because sometimes we are fighting the sea, and sometimes we just have to, surrender to it.
And for you listening right now, we've got the insider intel. We're bringing you the ticket prices, the exact distances, the travel times, and crucially, exactly which side of the train you need to sit on for the best views.
That is so important.
It is. So let's start with this idea of defying the elements. Because our first route feels like a monument to human stubbornness. Okay, let's unpack this with a journey in northern Germany.
Right, from Husum to Kietum on the island of Sylt.
Yes. And it's a journey that, frankly, really shouldn't be possible.
It really shouldn't. To understand why this track even exists, you have to look at the aftermath of the First World War. Sylt is this sandy, very remote outpost. It's the largest of the North Frisian Islands in the North Sea.
Okay.
And for a long time, the only way to get there was a traditional ferry from a mainland port.
Which makes total sense. I mean, it's an island. You take a boat.
Right. Except the territory containing that specific mainland port was ceded to Denmark after the war.
Oh, wow. So they just lost their port.
Exactly. Suddenly, the Weimar Republic had a massive logistical nightmare on their hands. Their own island was cut off. So German engineers and planners got to work on an incredibly ambitious solution, which was building a railway causeway straight across the Wadden Sea.
Okay, let's just pause there. It's like those 1920s engineers were playing a massive game of chicken with the ocean.
That's a great way to put it.
Building over a tidal mudflat, the foundation work alone, dealing with the shifting sands and the aggressive tides of the North Sea, is just staggering.
It is. But their gamble actually paid off. The Hindenburg Causeway opened in 1927. And what's fascinating here is that nearly a century later, it is still completely car-free.
Wait, really? No cars at all?
No cars. It is a dedicated 11-kilometer rail link right over the sea. In fact, as of mid-April, you can even take a high-speed IC train across it.
I love that contrast. Because for anyone listening who hasn't ridden one, an ICE train is Germany's premier lightning-fast bullet train.
Yeah, oh yeah, they are incredible.
Sleek, aerodynamic, designed to fly between major cities at 300 kilometers an hour. And here, it's just creeping across a salty mudflat.
It's a brilliant juxtaposition, isn't it? Ultra-modern luxury against harsh, unforgiving nature. The journey itself is 44 miles, takes exactly 1 hour, and trains run hourly.
And the cost?
You'll pay about $21.60 on the DB network.
And the golden rule for you listening, sit on the left.
Yes, definitely the left.
Because the visual of this journey sounds wild. You start in Husum, which is a coastal town historically shaped by the herring trade. You leave town sweeping over the harbor on a high bridge, looking down at this cluster of fishing boats, and then you are gliding north over these vast marshlands and meadows.
But notice the environment out that left window when you do.
Yeah.
Those meadows are protected by massive high dikes. You get this real feel for the distant horizons. But the sea itself feels far away because it's being physically held at bay by these walls of earth.
Right, until you hit Clankspool.
Exactly. After Clankspool, the railway suddenly turns west, leaving the protection of the dikes entirely. And you are out on the open, salty mudflats.
And we have a pro tip here from the source for the ultimate experience. You need to check the tide tables.
Yes, this is crucial.
You want to time this 1-hour journey for high tide, and ideally on a stormy day.
Which sounds crazy. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, taking a train over stormy mudflats when the water is whipping against the causeway, it provides this unforgettable, visceral thrill.
Because you are entirely at the mercy of the elements.
Right. You're watching the gray North Sea churn around you, safely tucked inside this climate-controlled cabin. It forces you to respect the environment in a way flying never could.
Yeah.
And then you finally alight in Kedem, which is this incredibly cozy village on silt, full of traditional Frisian thatch roofs and gables. It's beautiful.
It sounds amazing, but, that German causeway was all about building over the water.
Right.
What happens when the geography doesn't give you an inch of shore to build on and the ocean is just beating against sheer cliffs?
Then you have a real problem.
Well, the Irish solution was to go straight through the rock. Which brings us to our next engineering marvel, the route from Dublin Connolly Station down to Arklow.
Yeah, and this route is steeped in a surprisingly rich history. A lot of people assume London was the undisputed pioneer of mass transit.
I certainly did.
But Dublin actually had commuter trains before London did.
That completely blew my mind when I read that. Ireland's very first railway ran from Westland Row in Dublin to Kingstown, which is now Dunlow-Hare.
Right, and that historic stretch is just the prelude to this incredibly scenic route heading down the southeast coast.
And the value here is insane. For about 8.85 on Irish Rail, you get an hour and 45 minutes of pure architectural theater.
It really is a steal.
It covers 50 miles, runs 6 times a day, and once again, you absolutely want to sit on the left to face the Irish Sea.
Always the left. And the section just south of Dunlow-Hare is where the engineering gets really crazy. The railway literally cuts right under Braehead.
Just tunnels right through it.
Yes. This was designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. And if you know anything about Victorian rail history, his name is legendary.
Oh, absolutely.
He wasn't just an engineer, he was a visionary who loved pushing the limits of what was physically possible.
And we have to pause here and think about how they did this. This was the 19th century.
Right. No modern tech.
They didn't have massive laser-guided tunnel boring machines. You had laborers literally hanging off cliff faces over the crashing sea, carving tunnels through solid rock using black powder and hand tools. It is monumental.
It heavily resembles Brunel's celebrated coastal railway at Dawlish, in Devon, actually. Yeah. He could have routed the track inland to save money and lives.
Sure.
But he chose to hug the treacherous coastline because it was the most direct, albeit dangerous, path.
So you emerge from under this massive headland, and suddenly the train is just clinging to the coast. You've got these fine views of the Wicklow Hills rising off to the west and the Murrow wetlands right close by.
And while some purists might jump off the train at Wicklow to stay strictly on the coast, the smart play here is to stay on board.
Why is that?
Because the railway takes this short, beautiful foray inland through the hills. You glide down to the lush green woodland of the Vale of Avoca before the tracks regain the coast again at Arklow.
It's just an incredible bargain. Like we said, for less than €9, you get Victorian coastal engineering, wetlands, and lush inland valleys.
You can't beat it.
But let's shift gears a bit. Both the German and Irish routes are fundamentally about humanity conquering the sea, right?
Yeah, forcing our way across mudflats and through cliffs.
Exactly. But our next two routes, in Scotland and Spain, turn that dynamic entirely upside down.
They do. In these landscapes, nature is entirely in charge. The terrain is so wild and untamed that the railway has no choice but to snake its way through whatever path the earth allows.
It creates these jarringly beautiful ecological contrasts.
Yeah.
Let's start in Scotland. This is the route from Inverness to Kyle-off-Lохalsh.
Oh, this is a good one.
It's an 83-mile journey. It takes about 2 hours and 40 minutes. You've got 4 trains a day, costing 32 tolls on ScotRail. Now, you need to listen closely because this one requires a seating strategy.
It's a two-step dance, really.
Exactly. You want to start your journey sitting on the right side of the train, and then later you need to switch to the left.
And that seating maneuver is essential because this is the only local rail route in Britain that offers views of both the east and west coasts on a single journey.
That is so cool.
You are essentially crossing the entire country.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. These trains act almost like a cinematic tracking shot, stitching together totally different ecosystems. About half an hour after you leave Inverness, as you approach Dingwall, you look out that right window and you are greeted by the east coast, specifically the Cromarty Firth.
And for those unfamiliar, a firth is essentially a narrow sea inlet or estuary. They were carved out by glaciers millions of years ago. It's very sheltered, calm, and incredibly scenic. But that calm doesn't last.
No, it is not. The train turns inland, and you climb into the true Scottish Highlands. And if you look at the names on the map for the stations in this middle section, Axnashula, Achnasin, Achanault, Adadale, it's just pure alliterative desolation.
It is a harsh, rugged beauty out there. You are passing peat bogs, heather-clad moors, and towering peaks that look completely inhospitable.
Yeah, it feels isolated and ancient.
But then you reach the climax of the route, the final 20 minutes as you descend toward the west coast at Kyle-of-Lохalsh.
And this is where you switch to the left side of the train. Suddenly, that highland desolation breaks open into this magic panorama. You've got the sun sparkling on Loch Carron and glorious views north toward the wild Applecross Peninsula.
You've gone from a sheltered eastern firth through harsh mountain passes to an Atlantic coastal wonderland in under 3 hours. The transitions are staggering.
It's like a geographical time machine.
And as you approach Duncraig, you can look out the window and literally see seals shuffling for safety away from the tracks.
Wow, actual seals just right there.
Yeah, right next to the train.
Which brings us to Spain. And this one requires a bit of a debate, honestly. We are looking at the region of Galicia, traveling from Ribadeo to Ferrol.
Right.
It's 91 miles, takes about 3 hours and 10 minutes, runs 4 times a day, and costs 11.15 on the Renfe network. Sit on the right for this one.
So to give this some proper context, this Pacific Galician route is the final western edge of Europe's most extensive narrow-gauge rail network.
Okay.
The wider network runs for a grueling 20 hours, all the way from the French border through the Basque Country, Cantabria, and Asturias.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second because I'm looking at the details of this Galician route from the source, and frankly, I don't get it.
How so?
Well, it takes over 3 hours to go 90 miles. That is incredibly slow.
Huh?
Leaving Ribadeo, the guide admits you have to trundle past all these cheap, tacky beachfront tourist developments. And in the winter, the train is basically empty, like barely a dozen passengers. So why on earth are we recommending someone spend their valuable vacation time on this instead of just renting a car or taking a fast train somewhere else?
It's a completely fair challenge. It sounds tedious on paper, but that slow, unpolished navigation of the rugged Ortiguera coastline is exactly why this route is so valuable.
I'm listening.
It's an antidote to the modern urge to optimize every single second of travel.
So the inefficiency is a feature, not a bug.
Precisely. Once you get past that initial coastal development and cut away from the highway, you are thrust into a genuine, unvarnished look at Galician geography. It's not a curated tourist trap. You are forced to slow down and actually see the environment.
And the imagery does sound striking. You've got the crashing waves of the Atlantic breaking on the right, and then these rich, dense eucalyptus forests towering right on your left.
You also get these superb views across the Great Rias.
Which are what, exactly? Similar to the Scottish firths. Rias are these massive, deep coastal estuaries where river valleys have been completely drowned by the sea. They completely define the Galician landscape.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and as the train winds around them, you can look away to the north and spot Cape Ortegal sticking out into the ocean.
There's an interesting economic contrast mentioned here, too. This local train is incredibly humble. But if you want sheer luxury, you could book the El Transcantabrico charter train.
Oh, right.
Which runs on the exact same narrow-gauge tracks but costs an eye-watering amount of money.
We're talking thousands of euros versus 11 euros.
That's insane.
But the view out the window is identical. The eucalyptus forests smell the same, the estuaries look the same. The local train just lets you experience it alongside a handful of locals heading into Ferrol with their shopping, rather than from behind velvet ropes. It completely democratizes world-class travel. I love that. So we've navigated twisty estuaries in Spain, we've crossed stormy mudflats in Germany, we've tunneled under Irish cliffs. Now, our final route takes us away from these jagged, complex coastlines and feeds the desire for pure, uninterrupted scale.
Yes.
What if you just want to ride right on the very edge of the map?
For that, we head to Italy, specifically the deep south, the Calabrian coast.
We're looking at the route from Reggio di Calabria to Silverado. It's a 100-mile journey. It takes 2 hours and 20 minutes. Trains run every 1 to 2 hours, and it'll cost you $11.90 on Trenitalia. And for the best view of the edge of the world, sit on the right.
Now, this specific route suffers from a massive geographical misconception created by modern high-speed rail.
Oh, how so?
Well, most tourists traveling down the Italian coast are on the fast, smart Frecciarossa trains, and almost all of them end up bailing out at Villa San Giovanni.
Right, because that's the jumping off point where you catch the ferry over the Strait to Sicily.
Exactly. And the rest of those fast trains from Rome or Milan, they terminate just 15 minutes further south at Reggio di Calabria.
Okay, so that's where the line ends.
That's what people think. To the average tourist looking at a high-speed rail map, this feels like the absolute end of the line. High-speed rail makes us think a country ends where the fast train stops. They assume there's nothing left of mainland Italy.
But they are completely wrong.
They are. A local unheralded railway continues on, contouring around the southernmost tip of the Italian mainland. It leaves the busy Strait of Messina behind and heads east for the Ionian shores.
Wow.
No other railway in Europe hugs the coast as consistently, mile after mile, as this stretch of the Ionian Railway.
You are literally riding on the edge of the continent. The visuals described in the guide are a bright cinematic drama of changing coastline sweeping capes, hidden bays, endless olive groves, and bright bursts of oleander.
And the visual contrast is stark. If you look out the left window, you have the dark, looming forests of the Aspromonte Mountains dominating the hills. They feel heavy and ancient.
But if you look out the right window, there is literally nothing but the Ionian Sea between your train window and the coastline of Libya. It is pure, uninterrupted horizon.
This railway extends all the way to Taranto and Puglia, almost 300 miles away. But this 100-mile taster to Silverado is the absolute sweet spot. It captures the essence of the Mediterranean.
So what does this all mean for the traveler? I mean, it sounds like this Italian route is hiding in plain sight. People literally get off the train right before the best part starts. Why do we so often miss the actual edge of the map?
This brings us right back to our opening thought about teleportation. In modern travel, we are obsessively focused on endpoints.
Right.
We want to check Sicily off the list. We want to check Rome off the list. We treat the spaces in between as a void to be crossed as quickly as possible. This local Calabrian train is a reward for people who reject that mindset.
It rewards those who treat the landscape as a continuous living thing rather than just an obstacle between two tourist destinations.
Precisely.
It's an incredible reframe. And I want to pause here and just look at the unbelievable value hidden in these local rail networks we've discussed today. Think about it for a second. For less than the cost of a mediocre airport sandwich, you can witness wild Scottish seals off the coast of Duncraig.
Yeah.
You can ride through rich Spanish eucalyptus forests. You can creep across German mudflats in the middle of a churning sea storm, tunnel under massive Irish headlands engineered by Victorian pioneers, and stare out toward the coast of Africa from the very tip of Italy.
You don't need a massive budget. You don't need to charter a luxury carriage. You just need a local ticket, a willingness to slow down, and, well, the knowledge of which window to look out of.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave you, our listener, with something to really chew on. We've talked a lot about the views, but there is a deeper philosophical takeaway here.
There is. Think about how the sheer speed of our daily lives dictates our entire relationship with the world around us. When we fly over these coasts in mere minutes, or blast past them in a 300-kilometer-an-hour billet train, we perceive the land exactly as we described at the start as a flat, abstract map. The details blur.
Right.
But when we match our speed to the rhythm of a local train, one that submits to the geography rather than plowing through it, we are forced into a relationship with the earth.
You literally see the mudflats yield to the sea. You see the sheer cliffs surrender to lush valleys.
This raises an important question for all of us. If slowing down on a train reveals an entirely different, richer version of a country, what other hidden transitions are we missing in our daily lives simply because we are moving too fast to notice them?
That is the perfect question to end on. The next time you find yourself stressed out in a crowded airport terminal, wishing you could just hit a button and teleport to your destination, remember that the real magic often lives in the transitional spaces. It lives right where the land meets the water.